So it's LEGO week this week in the UK for some reason, as we've only just gotten the release of Piece by Piece, despite it coming out a few weeks earlier in the US. Yada yada, something about half terms. But at the same time, there's also news about reviving LEGO Movie live action reboots coming. We'll talk about that soon enough. But first, since I finally got to see this damn movie, I thought I'd put together my thoughts for a little review for you. Because this is probably one of the weirdest installments of the 2024 animated roster. Like, I can't be the only one to think that this movie would be dead on arrival, right? Like, a LEGO documentary? How in the hell would that work, and who thought of this? Well, despite it clearly being on a bit of a back foot, considering the last few LEGO movies were absolutely stellar, boundary-breaking pieces of animated art, turns out this movie, somehow, is actually pretty damn good. I know, I'm surprised as you are. This was not on my bingo card, I'll be honest. But yeah, let's take a look at the Pharrell Williams biopic told through LEGO, piece by piece. Now, to be fair, if I was Pharrell Williams making a biopic, LEGO isn't exactly the worst format to consider going through. I mean, the LEGO group have made some actually pretty interesting movies since they started creating feature-length movies. You know, as we all know, the first LEGO movie surprised absolutely everyone by being absolutely stellar and telling a story that truly appealed to every demographic with its bombastic adventures in the LEGO world and the real-life story happening on the outside. A brilliant meta-commentary on the format of play, I guess. You then got the second one receiving good reviews overall, but seemed to have been kind of forgotten pretty quickly to the general public. You know, couldn't get the magic of the first one. Surprising us again with two other departures from the main core idea, where they produced a really good LEGO Batman movie, which is, honest to God, probably one of my favorite Batman stories. I'm cursed in that way. And then, eventually, LEGO ended up fumbling with their LEGO Ninjago movie. But the reason all of these movies somewhat work to their own degrees in a little bubble is they have this, you know, blocky feel that we can just integrate into. The characters move in a slightly stiff manner, the backgrounds are all designed to look like LEGO, and everything is brightly coloured and plastic looking. Great for an animated fictional story, and hey, it's brilliant that it mimics stop motion animation of LEGO productions of the past. But then after their contract ended with Warner Brothers, it tied up with a knot saying it was a mixed bag of different releases, but for LEGO's plan next to be release a documentary about famed musician and producer Pharrell Williams, yeah, sure, of course that makes perfect sense. Now, I personally am not overly familiar with Pharrell as a creator. At most, I love the fact that most of his name sounds like my name. I'm Daryl, he's Farrell. It's pronounced completely differently. That being said, I did live through the 2010s, so I am, of course, aware of Happy and Blurred Lines. But in regards to his early career and his life before that, and whatever the hell he's up to, not quite these days, but slightly before these days, I knew nothing. So genuinely, it was a great educational piece for me. The movie starts off in Pharrell's younger years, as these types of musical biopics often do, and the first new fact that I actually got out of this movie is the fact that Pharrell has synesthesia, a perceptual condition that enabled the young producer to see different colors when he listened to music. We see him in front of a boombox in his Virginia Beach home, and colored bricks emit from the speakers, shifting and changing constantly to create a really beautiful kaleidoscope of bricks and colors that really helps you begin to understand how he sees the world, even from a young age, despite not having synesthesia itself. And I think, so early on in the movie, this is the start of the admittedly endless creativity that this movie exhibits. I think we were all thinking that the LEGO thing was just a marketing gimmick at best, done as a way to try and boost up the general numbers of a pretty generic sounding musician biopic. But actually, it's used incredibly effective throughout this movie. Documentaries about musicians all seem to have a set formula. They learn about music, hit industry heights, become incredibly popular, crash out, and recover to begin a new life, with varying degrees of creativity, artistic prowess, and editing ability. If you know, you know. Now, this film doesn't stray from that structure. If anything, it brushes over the crash in Pharrell's career pretty quickly. But by constructing itself out of LEGO, it's able to build this unique visual language to tell its story in new and interesting ways. The curse with biopics is they're so live action and pretty standard personal stories. But with animation, you can really flourish. Not a single frame is wasted, with intricate details in every shot. Visual gags are aplenty, and the animated form is just wholeheartedly embraced. There's an extended sequence where we meet Snoop Dogg where the mist that surrounds him at all time is addressed in a very clever way, and also his height is addressed by giving him extra bricks on the bottom of his feet. Also, weed reference in the Lego brand, incredible. And there are plenty of other little moments like that, including the way that they package Pharrell delivering music to the many artists that he's worked with over the years. We see him constructing tiny little models piece by piece. Haha, I get it now. We never really see CDs or other musical tech like that. They're just these glittering tiny little Lego pieces that emit bright lights. And it's a refreshing way of visually demonstrating the different elements of a track coming together, and ties back to Pharrell's unique perception of the world. It's the most artsy example of a biopic to date. And as a Lego fan, I found myself constantly looking at how things had to be put together. Whether or not it would work using actual Lego, I don't know, but it looks like it would. And that in and of itself is an impressive feat from the animators and modelers that worked on this movie. Though maybe that's old tech. I mean, Transformers somehow transform, and I don't have a clue how that works. But that's not to say this movie is without flaw, because the problem that I see with this movie is, who is it really for? I mean, one of the benefits of getting this movie so late in the UK is we can look at some of the data of the box office, and yeah, it doesn't seem to be tracking all so well, at least in the States so far. And I think part of the reason might be to do with the actual subject of the film. It's an overall very whimsical production that covers the major moments of Pharrell's career, but when you have artists like Snoop Dogg, Timbaland, and those who have a more adult-skewing audience, and then you put on this more kid-friendly Lego brand humor over the top of it, and it just becomes a bit of a confusing bit. Snoop Dogg turns into a dog. Haha, a child would like that. He's surrounded by weed gas. To me, it feels like a movie made by Pharrell for Pharrell, you know? He took an active producer role in the film and is clearly in control of the narrative that is being explored. Some of the more public controversies he's been involved in, with songs like Blurred Lines, being brushed over very quickly. I was around in the 2010s, I certainly noticed that. One of the few things I do know about his career trajectory. You can't lie to me there. It instead focuses on Pharrell's darker times, being when he quote-unquote sold out, and how he overcame becoming too successful. You know, it feels like an obvious choice made by Pharrell to make him seem more appealing to a mass audience. You could sometimes forget that you're watching a documentary, and I don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. But would I have paid attention to this movie if it wasn't Lego? I don't think so. Like I said, I don't have an intimate awareness of Pharrell as an artist, and I have definitely come away learning a bit more about the man than I did beforehand. He's had his hand in so many hit songs over the years, working with countless A-listers, building clothing lines and other businesses on the side. You know, the man was a hard worker, and there's no doubt about that. But again, it sometimes feels like the movie veers into advertisement for Pharrell as a brand, more so than creating a cohesive movie. It doesn't overly stray into full-blown marketing territory, but there are some times where that corporal shadow shines through. Which is ironic, because there are corporations in the documentary that are vilified at a point and blamed for leading Pharrell away from his true path. That being said, while there might be some sort of corporate controversy underlining this movie, I still very much enjoyed the movie. It's interesting. I think the concept of an animated documentary is something that has been widely underutilized in modern media, and is something I would be really interested in seeing more of in the future. There's so many intriguing ways you can use animation in a documentary to tell a brilliant, elevated, more artsy story. And I understand that they have to be timely in some instances, but stories like this you can do a little bit more with. So whilst Piece by Piece could have been a by-the-numbers documentary, and story-wise it still is, it's making every creative decision it can be to not be so by the numbers. I can understand why it's struggling to reach a wider audience. It seems to be a bit confused about who it wants its audience to be, but the boundless creativity from the animation to the score to even the interview structure is befitting of the star's own creative process. It's an applaudable movie, if anything, for trying to do something different that hopefully inspires others to try and do something with the documentary form going forward, because let's be honest, that genre hasn't exactly changed all that much recently. This movie turned out to be a good bit better than the first impressions I had on this movie when first seeing the trailer, but at the end of the day, it is still a limited format compared to the breadth of history that the Lego Group released in prior animated movies. It is one of the better of all the biopics for its creative flourish, but one of the worser of the Lego movies because it's still a pretty realistic story, taking away some of the storytelling that Lego at one point was absolutely on top of the animated world for. So I guess in that regard, it's almost exactly as we kind of expected. Who knows where this will go in the future? Will this influence other creators to do other animated animated things, or will LEGO themselves go into more interesting directions from here? Oh, okay, they're going there. Well, we'll talk about that like tomorrow. Either way, that is my review on LEGO's Piece by Piece that I finally got to see here in the UK. For now, my name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video. Do let me know, have you checked out Piece by Piece? Are you going to watch it? Are you like me and not aware at all of Pharrell's catalogue? Or are you a super fan looking to see everything he has to offer? And what do you think about animated biopics? I'd love to hear all your thoughts. This is a new department of animation to talk about, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. But otherwise, I shall see you all in a little bit.